Hello and welcome to another episode, friends. Thank you for letting us join you. I know a lot of you have just started running, and I hope that these first few steps are feeling good, that your body is like, yes, here we go. We are training. Everything feels amazing. And you know what? Even if it doesn't, well done for getting out there. And sometimes it's all you need is a little warm up before things start loosening up, before you can really get into that rhythm. But I think the best thing that you have done so far is that you have started your run, and Coach Sally is applauding you right now. And we are going to have a great time. This might be a 45-minute podcast. It might be an hour, hour and a half. Really, we will not know until we upload it onto the platform. So we are very happy to be sitting here in sunny Huntington Beach. Eddie, I don't know when we're going to get some fall weather. I have just come back from Flagstaff, Arizona to visit my daughter for a few days, get some good mom-daughter time. And the leaves were popping. We got all kinds of colors. And then Mackenzie sent us a video this morning of her walking in the snow. And that is just a few days after getting back home. I mean, This was just, I just got back from Flagstaff a few days ago, and she's walking in snow. So I am yearning for the change of seasons. This morning, I posted to my subscribers on Instagram, and I asked everyone, what is the weather like where you are? Also, tell me your go-to breakfast. And so it was really fun to see what everyone had to say. But Eddie, yes, all around us, people are already running in below freezing temps. Yeah. 30 to 40 degrees. We're talking Fahrenheit right here. And here we are in the sunshine. We can still run in shorts and a sports bra, shorts and a shirt. It's yeah.
Yes, we can. Those of us that choose to run can definitely do that.
Now, for our friends who are running in the snow right now or running in cold weather, I always have to remind myself that for those who have grown up in that kind of weather, they will run through that the whole winter, as long as the ground isn't icy and dangerous, and they will still run in shorts.
Next level.
That is next level. Shout out to all of our friends braving the cold temperatures. We're really proud of you. If you have just started that treadmill and you got little ones running around, or you are in the gym right now, Eddie and I have been through all of that. I mean, when we were in Bend, we had the snow. When we were in Virginia, we had some snow too. Yes. So we love all the seasons, and we feel you no matter how you're getting that workout in. I know some of you have started on the bike and have started lifting up that iron. It's always a good day when we can get a workout in.
What if they're lifting iron on the bike?
Oh, yeah. You know what? Actually, I think like the Peloton bike and the iFit series, some of those bikes come with these little racks where you can put little dumbbells on them. I mean, they're like 1 to 5 pounds, I think, at most. But yeah,
some of their arms with them.
Yeah, some of those workouts, it's they'll get some upper body work.
I'm talking about like the 50s.
Yeah,
they have those.
Yeah, and where in your life ever in your daily activities would you be doing that?
I don't know. I've been to some other countries where they're on bikes and they're like hauling like all 4 of their kids. Sorry. You know exactly what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
I remember
I'm pretty sure I just got coffee all over the microphone, so I am so sorry for that.
I remember in Cambodia, I remember watching this one guy cruise by, and he was on his bike, and he had this lady on the back, and she literally had one of those IV drips, like from the hospital.
No
she
way.
was holding onto that, just like on the bike. Yeah.
See, these are the things we must remember.
Yeah,
You know, we have a lot of comfort here provided us in the United States. And you are right. When you and I taught English in Tianjin, China, that was our first time ever experiencing bike commute at the most extreme level.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
Not only that, because we got in some taxis, also experiencing what it's like to drive on a road that's not marked at all.
Yeah.
And you can kind of just drive wherever you want. But the thing is, there's traffic coming at you and there's thousands of bikes everywhere. And these guys are still keeping a steady 60 miles per hour. Like every time we got into a taxi bus, I was like, we are going to die today.
That's what's funny when I'm driving here and may or may not cut someone off or like, you know, turn in front of them where I probably should have waited.
Right.
And they like start honking at me, laying on the horn. I'm like,
Right.
man, have you guys ever driven anywhere outside of the country? Like, this is just like normal. That's how people drive. But here it's like, get all upset. It's
Right.
like, come on.
Right. Are you justifying being totally rude on the road this morning? Because I don't know.
A little bit.
Do you roll down your window like, hey, haven't you ever driven in China? Come on.
I do remember, speaking of driving, I remember, I think it was like a year ago. I still have, obviously, you know, but I have Oregon license plate on my truck.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it'd be because we still have a house in Oregon, so I can do that. But
also because
and it's 4 times cheaper here. I mean, there.
Thank you.
So,
there we go.
but I still have my Oregon plates. But the one lady, I'm like, I cut her off and to get into the left lane, not on purpose, but I did.
No. Why would we think that? You have story after story of cutting people off.
She rolls down her window. Go back to Oregon.
I was with you.
I'm like, dude, I'm
we were
your
laughing
neighbor.
so hard.
I live next to you.
I've been here longer than you.
Yeah.
I was born and raised. This is my hometown.
So funny.
Yeah, I do remember that. When people are so upset, they're just going to find like some identifying factor as to why they were cut off. And so it's probably because you were from Oregon.
Yeah, because in Oregon, they drive perfect. No, they never cut people off.
No other state. I mean, I know that LA, which I love it when people say, oh, but you're from LA. I'm like, I am not from LA. That is a different country, LA. Even though it's like only 50, 60 kilometers north of us. But whatever.
Yeah.
Southern California driving is known for being completely congested. We have like these 16-lane highways, and it's pretty much like you got to survive.
Yeah.
And so people are aggressive, and there is some fast driving, and it can be very stressful. I remember when our kids. Well, Isaiah's in the middle of it. He's about to get his license next month. But even with Mackenzie, we were like so afraid to have her get on the freeway. We're like,
I know. This
is not the same as driving in most states in the United States.
Yeah.
New York's the same. It's like really crazy there. I'd say a lot of the major cities, it's going to be congested. You're going to have some horns and, a lot of upset people. And you never know.
Yep.
I mean, you never know who you're cutting off. So probably not good to retaliate with, haven't you ever driven in China?
I haven't said that. I've thought about it, but I've never said it.
I will say, so this was like literally 5 weeks after Eddie and I had been married. We went to China, to Tianjin, and we taught for a month. We taught English, and it was such a wonderful opportunity because it was free. And you and I love to travel, and we just saw this as the coolest opportunity. It's like, what else are you going to do when you're first married?
Well, yeah, it was a win-win because we just got married, and we're like, okay, we don't have to pay rent until we get back, so let's not get a place, right? So we we have a month free.
Free.
We can go to China and travel and so it was kind of a win-win.
And you and I had been to several different countries at that point. I mean, we did some traveling in our in our teens and our early 20s, and we were still in our early 20s when we got married. We were only 23 when we did this. And so, it was, and also you were an elementary education major. That's how you were able to get into this program.
Yeah.
And since you had just gotten married, I was able to come along with you. And I thought, man, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait. We're going to go check out like the Great Wall of China. And we're going to go check out the Xi'an soldiers. And I mean, the way we envisioned it was the way that you envisioned school here in the United States. You teach Monday through Friday. You got like an 8 to 2, 8 to 3 program.
Yep.
You got the afternoons and evenings off. Weekends, hello. So we were like, dude, every Friday to Sunday, we're going exploring.
Yeah.
We're getting on a train. We're taking a taxi. We're doing something. We are going to go check out China. Fully immerse.
Yeah.
And then we arrived. And we got the itinerary from the head schoolmaster who said, you will be teaching 12 hours a day, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
And by the time we made it to that first Sunday, we were so dead,
we just want to sleep.
Exhausted. We just wanted to sleep. And the bed that we were in, do you remember this?
I do.
We stayed in this, the school was essentially somewhat of a boarding school.
Yeah, yeah.
But the kids did have a summer break, so they had gone home, but then they were sent back to the school because I guess I don't know if it's in this area, but learning English is very valuable. And so these kids were sent there, and we were told within that month they had better increase their English by 50%. I remember you and I look at each other like,
No
like
pressure.
you and I know Spanish, but
Yeah.
if I had to increase what I know in Spanish by 50% in 4 weeks, like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And they had this building, 3-4 story building with a lot of little mini, I guess they when you walk inside of them, it's just a room and a bathroom with a little shower, toilet, sink.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy about it whatsoever. And when I say nothing fancy about it whatsoever is we walk in and we are blasted in the middle of summer, right? So it's heat, humidity, and sewage. Here we are, brand new married, and the whole place just reeked of, I don't know where it came from, definitely the toilet, but that stayed for the entire time. And then I went to go sit on the bed, and it was a legit bowl.
Yeah.
It was a bowl. It was probably like the size of like a full bed. And, you know, Eddie and I, we weren't raised on fancy food whatsoever. Like I ate some pretty low grade food for most of my life. And I was very excited. And I was used to whatever is put in front of me, you eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not a picky eater whatsoever. Now, back in the States, you and I loved going to Chinese fast food.
Yeah.
That is not the same as when you actually go to China and
No.
you eat Chinese food.
Yeah. Nope. It's different.
It isn't just chicken fried rice bowl, and that's not what it is. But we did have, I think there was 1 or 2 times they taught us how to make dumplings. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They taught us to make dumplings, and like we had like legit Chinese food every single day. I think they fed the kids like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we would eat with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by day 4, all the teachers on our team, there was like 12 of us, we all had diarrhea.
Yeah.
And that stayed with us as we made our way up 2, 3, 4 flights of stairs to our rooms, which there's no elevator for the entire camp.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about like it still stayed with us, like, because
Today?
I still struggle. Maybe now I know what the
Oh man,
reason
I don't
is.
even know where I was going with that, but I have to say that like despite all the things, like you're learning, you're stepping into new culture, and as I said earlier, Eddie and I have traveled to a lot of countries, and I love anytime I get the chance, if I can stay with a host family, I would much rather do that than go to a hotel. I love eating the food they eat. I love learning as much as the history that I can, trying to learn the language. I just find a lot of value in that. And you know, we tried really hard to learn Chinese, and thankfully, Eddie, do you remember you and I were paired up? We got to team teach, which was like, I think if we weren't paired up, it would have been exponentially harder to get through that month. But it was so fun teaching with Eddie because, I mean, Eddie, you're a big kid, you're very playful. Every class you've ever taught, that your kids love you. But the first day, when we walked into class, all the kids were there before us, and they were sitting there with their hands behind their back.
Yeah.
Sitting tall.
Yeah.
Head to toe, that torsos were just as straight as an arrow.
Yeah.
And no expression on their faces. And you and I come to the front, and I think you and I were like, wow, you guys can chill. Like, you don't have to like totally chill out, you know? And they have been conditioned to take the education very seriously. And I think by day, 8, I mean, these kids were sitting on top of tables and desks playing chess with you. And we would just giggle. We're like, you know what? These kids are not learning 50% more English, but we are going to give them an incredible summer, and we're going to love on them, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to play games, and we're going to laugh. And I think that every kid in that class had some Chinese nickname for you. I don't know how many of them were good or
I don't know.
or not, but there were a few in the class that really loved when we would try to speak Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And they would try so hard to get us to pronounce it correctly. And, you know, when I think all languages are like this. It's like their mouths and tongues are just made to pronounce certain sounds. And there's just some sounds and things that we don't say in our language, you know? And so every time we would try to pronounce a word, we would not say it right the first time, and the kids would just in a full uproar of laughter. Well, there was one kid that was really good at English and Chinese, and what we learned was with the slightest, you know, inflection of tone, you put the accent in the wrong place, you could be saying something terrible, humiliating, wrong, like, and so, you know, they might be trying to teach us how to say dog, and instead we just said underwear, you know, and that's not a true example, but there were times where that's what it was. You said something simple and they're like, do you know what you just said? And but we had such a great time with those kids. I'll never forget that, because at the end of all of it, we were encouraged and led by the head professor at Biola to do a dance to a Celine Dion song, which I really pray and hope that the video footage of that is buried in the depths of the ocean, because
not a good.
There has never been a more humiliating. Remember all the parents? It was the last day of camp. All the parents are coming in with it. You know, there's family in there. It's the kids. It's everyone from the school. And it's like, now the teachers are going to perform. And, you know, Chinese culture is very different. Like the performances are like a really big deal. And they do things extravagantly. And they take that seriously. They sing and dance. They have amazing costumes. And the few times I've raced in China, that's something
like
I've
floating dragons.
Always appreciated.
Like
it's like so awesome. But what we had to do, I was like, this is not impressive. Like this is embarrassing. A Celine Dion song.
Didn't we like
a choreograph? Yes,
practice like 8 minutes before, and I'm like, Remember
how mad Jess got at me? She's like, "You do not have good rhythm. You're doing it wrong. You're off beat, Sally." She was getting so mad at me, and I was like, "Okay, this is how we're ending this whole thing. The most memorable of memorable." But and then we had a week left to tour around.
Yeah.
And we had good friends with us, particularly the Higgins, Tommy and Kendra Higgins, who we all played soccer at Biola together. We graduated together. We got married, you know, pretty close around the same time. And they were right next door to us. Their room was right next door to us, where we stayed right there in the school campus. And so at the end of the day, like, they were our friends that we were honest with.
Yeah.
We were all very honest with each other about how we were feeling. But we finished this camp, and, you know, one of the head persons of the organization, what it was that we were doing, they're like, we have arranged for you guys to have a tour. We're going to take you to Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to Xi'an. I mean, we were so excited. And then they handed us yellow polo T-shirts and stiff yellow hats with a bill that was at least a foot long.
Oh, yeah.
At least. And I need to find this picture from Kendra, but all of us put those in the trash immediately. And we were like, no.
Can't do that one.
We are not wearing any of that in traveling around China.
But you know what? The kids that we had in the class, the Great Wall, the Terracotta Soldiers, that all redeemed the trip. You know, that was fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah, going on the Great Wall was incredible.
Yeah, that was.
Because that just feels like such a distant, very far away, untouchable. Like, when are you going to have an opportunity to go and witness that? And just, I mean, the history and like the depth of like how old some of that stuff is.
Yep.
It really was special to be able to experience that. And I think when we left, though, we were like, I don't know if we'll ever come back here again. Yeah. In the very end of all of it, they then showed us the school that was being built, and they said, and this is where the teachers will live. Would you like to come and teach here? Commit to a year of teaching.
Oh yeah.
I remember just everyone on the trip was like, no, not at all. Never.
I don't care how nice that building is.
Yeah.
I'm not. I can't do it.
If the last 4 weeks was a preview of an entire year to come, no.
I might not make it.
I won't even tell my enemies to go do that. No, we're making it sound terrible. It wasn't terrible. We were young kids that
it was actually good trip.
you have ideas in your head of how something is going to be.
Yeah.
And also like being able to spend that much time, and we were there for 5 weeks and we learned a lot. And I think it's so good when if we do have opportunities, not everyone has the opportunity, when you can immerse yourself into another culture and learn as much as you can. I mean, there's a lot of lessons, a lot of growth that you'll experience in that. But then you also start to see too how much we connect.
Yeah.
You know, we connected with so many people there, even if we didn't speak their language. And good memories.
Good memories. Good memories. Some good.
Memories. Some good.
Some not so good.
Some good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really good.
All right.
I don't know how we got started.
I don't
on
know,
that, but
but
people are running right now.
I'm going to bring you back.
They're smiling and they're like, okay, this is another ping pong podcast, huh? I promise I do have something saved for you. So you just hold on tight with me because I have actually just gotten back from speaking to an awesome group of individuals. I had a corporate speaking engagement this morning, and it was really nice because it was in LA. And the question that the gentleman asked at the end. So I spoke. Sometimes I do a Q&A at the end of my talks. Today I got to do a Q&A, but the question that the gentleman asked me was sitting in the front row. Do you remember this, Eddie? Right before I closed.
I remember.
Fantastic question.
Yeah, it was good.
And I want to bring that up. It was the question. I'll just say this and I'll answer it later. But the question was, and this was a sales team. It was a whole room of a sales team.
Yeah.
There's like their highest performers. And he was just talking about having a very rough season.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how do you actually believe that things are going to get better? And, you know, what are you telling yourself? What are you doing in order to keep going? And this is one of my favorite things about speaking because I always use running as the parallel. And at some point in my talk, I will always say, you know, this is the easiest part of my life. People can talk about the discomfort, you know, the uncomfortable moments, you know, and sometimes injuries that come from doing these races and within the training. But if we can take what we learn in running and we apply it to a real life, because real life stuff is way harder than races that we sign up for. That's a massive privilege, a great opportunity where we can pick and choose what we want to endure. Really, you can drop out at any aid station you want and go try again another race. But there are a lot of things in our life that we don't get an opportunity to DNF, to quit. And sometimes if we do want to stop, but there's a lot hanging on us. There's whether or not we're going to pay our bills and put food on the table. And so when we're working really hard and we're not seeing the return and we don't feel like we're going anywhere, that's real. That's real life. And what's the answer to that? So I got to answer that question, and it was really special moment. So for those of you that are running, and those of you that are possibly making soap, painting, doing, was that ceramic art that we got last week, sewing, washing dishes. I'm really excited about answering that question at the end of this podcast, and I think it's something we can all apply to life. So I'm going to bat this over to you, Ed, and we'll go from there. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. One of the relationships that I am most proud of in my life is the relationship I have with Eddie James McCrae. And I'll tell you what, a common misconception about strong relationships is that they have to be easy to be right. You know, sometimes the best relationships happen when both people choose to put in the work to make them great. And I believe therapy can be a great place to work through the challenges you face in all of your relationships, whether with friends, work, your significant other, or anyone. In past experience, I have found that therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma or have major challenges in life. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit betterhelp.com/choosestrong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/choosestrong.
All right, Sal, why don't you give us a quick update about the Old Fort Strong Endurance Festival? I saw a couple posts going on lately with people signing up, people donating, and it seems to be going really well. But do you have any updates on any of that?
Yes, so we're batting it right back at me.
Yeah. I don't know what you're batting to me. I'm batting it back at you.
So the Old Fort Strong Endurance Festival, we talked about this in the last podcast. If you follow me on social media, then you've probably seen a post about it. First and foremost, I need to say thank you to everybody that responded.
Mm-hmm.
There's still time to respond. And every podcast going forward will always have a link where you can give. So if you are hopping in the podcast right now, is your first time hearing about it, we are going to be doing a endurance festival on December 7th. And I'm planning on flying into North Carolina from December 5th to the 8th. And the goal is to be a part of this awesome race fundraiser that will help get the city back on its feet. They've identified 50 families who have completely lost everything. There's businesses that have gone under. It's the old fort was hit pretty hard, and things were washed away. It's not just flooding. Some of the pictures that have been coming through have just been, it's very devastating. So what I really love about what's happening here is you can sign up for a 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour run race or a bike race. And both of those are loops that are going to be held at Camp Greer. Now, Camp Greer is throughout the year. It's this massive property, and it's typically a youth sports camp in the summer. It runs all summer long. Throughout the year, there's other things that go on there. I know that Jason puts on like a 5K, and some people rent it out for weddings and things like that. So it's very beautiful, but they were able to get a massive generator on site, and they have been allowing people to come. They are able to wash clothes, take showers, get meals. Some people are actually sleeping there, living in the cabins and the bunks right there. They are just right there on ground zero. They are in it with everyone that is trying to put their lives back together. And so when you go on the site using the link in the show notes here, you are giving directly to that. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise a good amount of money and make a difference. I know the devastation is widespread, and it is nice, particularly in this situation. This is a place that means a lot to me personally. I have a lot of memories here from many, many, many years and seasons of doing trail camps. But Jason and Brandon are also like family to me. I love them. I love their families, and I love the good work that they're doing. So, Eddie, you were about to say something.
Well, I wanted to ask if people are still able to sign up. I thought I saw something that was full.
So you can sign up virtually and compete virtually.
Okay.
So that's something that if you want the shirt that goes with it, I think you have to sign up pretty quick.
Okay.
But
like the in-person stuff is full?
I think certain distances are. I don't know if the 24 hours. I haven't been on the site yet. I usually get an update every day from the guys.
I think it is full.
Okay.
What
about the bike?
I don't know about the bike.
Okay. Yeah, so there's the bike there. One thing we've also talked about doing is we will likely do a shakeout run, probably in Black Mountain. Anton Krapishka is going to be there too. So a lot of people know Tony. He's a legend in our sport. That's probably why it sold out so fast. Like, he's so inspirational. And so we're really happy to see people respond right away. I didn't know that it was totally sold out, but I did say to Brandon, I was like, hey, if people had wanted to come to the in-person event and they couldn't, then maybe we can do a shakeout run the Thursday night before the actual race, where anyone in the community can come and hang out. We'll do a little talk. So that's going to be an option too. And then the virtual option, every bit counts there.
Yep.
So if you want to sign up for that, we're going to try to tap in. My hope is I am going to help with a lot of the live footage that's going on. So I'm hoping that everyone that's doing the virtual will get a selfie video of themselves or some type of picture, and we'll be sharing those throughout the entire 24 hours, showcasing everyone that is doing it virtually. We might have like a Zoom sign-on page where people can actually tag in and be a part of the online virtual community. But yeah, there's a lot of pieces we're still putting together. But especially if you have a business or you are looking for a year-end way to give, I know we're going into that season where people are looking for ways that they can give. This is a wonderful way, because you're giving straight to the people there in Old Fort who have, they're going into the holiday season having lost everything. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks for the update. And speaking of updates, Moab 240 was just this past weekend.
Good memories. It feels like that I raced that just a few months ago.
1 year ago.
Yeah.
And it feels like, it wasn't too long ago.
Not too long ago. And I'll tell you what, that race will always have a special place in my heart, because that is the race that I got to have the most pacers and crew. It was kind of like the coming home, the gathering up of everyone who had been a part of it. We had Summer, we had Joe, we had Sarah, we had Leo.
Yep.
We had Billy. I mean, it was so much fun. And we had you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Moab 240, for those of you that aren't familiar, there's a new category. Not a new category. 200's been around for a little over a decade. But I think in the last few years, they've really started to gain a little bit more traction. Personally, I think it's a great thing to put on your bucket list. It's, doing one it's an amazing adventure. It's definitely a different event than the 100-mile race. It's run very differently. But my good friend Sarah Ostaszewski, I've said her name incorrectly so many times. She's my friend, but Sarah Ostaszewski, she was the champion this year, and she came in at 77 hours. I had to
Shout
giggle.
out to Sarah.
I had to giggle on Destination Trails, and they're like, setting a new course record. I'm like, yeah, she better set a new course record. When I won the race, that was rounding out the Grand Slam, so it was not a fast time what I posted. So, but Sarah, regardless, I think even if I went out and ran as fast as I could, I don't think I would have beat that time. That was a stout 77 hours for 240 miles. But Sarah has very fast times in all the 200s.
Yeah,
she is a
quick.
Phenomenal 200-mile athlete. I mean, in my opinion, she's the queen. She won Cocodona 250 the year that I did it last year. And amazing, very strong mountain climber, but just a incredible person. I think when I first met her I was doing a podcast on Joe Corcione's podcast, and I think her sister was on it too, Melissa. She has a twin sister named Melissa, and both of them are amazing athletes. They crush it. But I remember, so I got to be on a podcast with her, and she had already run Cocodona, I think, 2 times before, because this year was the 4th time, and that last year was her 3rd time. And her goal was, to best her time, and she ended up winning. And she was so kind, so it was like super fun to meet her in person, and we like stayed in touch. Melissa works for Nike, and so we kind of like know all the same people like in that space. And then she had offered, she's like, hey, if you need any help at Moab. And I was like, seriously? Like, she's someone that's been such an inspiration to me. She's so good at this distance. And I was like, yeah, if you could like, if you want to help pace. And she paced like one of the toughest sections. And we had an incredible time. And I loved like running with her too, because she's competitive, but she's very calm and has just this very like peaceful demeanor about her. But she's like solid, focused, and kept me moving really well. And yeah, I just really appreciated that she gave up her time, came out there, and paced me, to a really strong race. And so I was so happy to see that she herself had signed up for it. We talked about it like when we were pacing. I was like, oh, you got to do this race. Like you would crush, because she's fast, but she's also an incredible climber. Like she gets up those mountains really quick. So I was like, you would do really well here. And yeah, it was really fun. It's fun to, cheer for someone that works so hard. And also it's very common. Sarah gives back to so many other people. She's always crewing or pacing other people.
Yeah.
And yeah, she really gives her time, which is precious.
Yeah.
So to see her win was, I was on the tracker constantly, because she wasn't always in first.
Okay.
And I think, at one point she was in third, and then second. She was in first, then back in second. And, the race is so long. That's how it goes, And if someone's 2 miles ahead of you, depending on how you are feeling, that they could be an hour ahead. And, a lot of times, the average pace that you're moving in these races, when all is said and done, when you add up the sleep and stopping at aid stations and how you get slower as the time goes on, it's like, people are going 3.5 miles per hour. And so, yeah, someone can get a few miles ahead of you and you're like, oh, dang, like they could actually be so far out of sight. But it was really neat just to see her, cruising, pushing hard. And then she took over that lead spot and gapped big time, and then came in at 77 hours. It was really beautiful. So
yeah, pretty impressive. Shout out to Sarah for winning the
Sarah.
Moab 240, and
love you, Sarah.
On her Instagram post was kind of cool. She gave you a little love as you inspired her to sign up.
Oh gosh.
And I think all those miles you shared with her last year, I think really, kind of inspired her to do it this year, and she went out and just won. So.
Well, it's very gracious of her. She is, she's in a league of her own in this distance, and, yeah, just a great human.
Yep.
So thanks. Yeah.
Well done, Sarah.
Well done, Sarah.
All right, moving on, Sal. I got I'm going to call this a review, and you can decide if it's a good one or a bad one.
Okay.
And
you moved on to
I've already moved
Choose
on.
Strong.
Let's move
so
on.
You skipped over Eddie's goals, even though it's right there in the list.
You know what?
We're bringing it back,
All right.
guys.
Eddie's goals.
Eddie's
let's do
goals.
this
We're
real quick.
not skipping over Eddie's goals.
Let's do it.
Well, people have been asking.
People want.
I actually want to know because
you don't even know.
As most people, I've been able to talk to some people face to face that follow the podcast that know us.
Oh yeah.
And they've brought up Eddie's goals a few times. And what I usually say is, I love them because it's always my first time hearing them.
Yep.
I never know what he is working on.
I keep those cards close to the chest. I don't let everybody see those.
Enlighten me, Ed. What are we? What's the goal?
All right. Well, what's the date? October 18th. Okay. So let me give you a goal.
Some math right now.
No, I'm just, sometimes I make the goals on the spot. And sometimes I have them written down. Sometimes.
Right.
Okay.
There's 31 days in October. So if you're going to do for the next 12 days to round out the 30th, just know there's 31 and you need 13 days.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to keep it nice and simple. My goal / goals, for October, which is half over, November and December, is I am going to be, let me just put it this way, it's gains season.
Oh,
okay. So I am going to be
interested in this.
I'm hitting the gym. I'm hitting the protein. I am, just getting back in the strength world.
Okay.
And I need it. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So
I feel like you're like crafting them right now.
No, I actually have thought about these.
Okay, and what
It
is
might
the
seem like
plan?
that.
So right now, that's a mindset.
That's a goal.
I need to get back in the strength world. I need to get to the gym.
That's my goal.
This is what I need. Oh, so your goal is to eventually find your way. There's no plan on how you're going to get there, but you've eyed it from a distance.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Right.
But I have the goal in place. The goal is to, hey, let's get to the gym, spend October, November, and December getting some muscle, getting back into it, and lifting some weight.
Right.
That's
right.
What the goal
so
is.
As a coach, there's nothing more frustrating than when an athlete says, this is what I want to do. And then you're like, so what are your first steps? And you're like, I've eyed it.
Hey,
It's what I know that I need. Okay.
That's
so
right.
what are the plans? What's the structure? I don't know.
No,
I just know I need
here's
that.
the structure. Okay. I'm gonna break it down a little bit more. So that is the big goal. And what's funny about that?
Your big goal is that you need strength?
No, yeah, essentially when it comes down to it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be getting in the gym, and I have a little bit, this past weekish.
Yeah.
And so for the next 2.5 months, that's what I'm going to be doing. And then
2025, January 1,
hold on.
Yeah.
So the plan is to, let's lift 45 minutes. And if we have time, we'll hit some cardio, 15-ish, 20 minutes. And then maybe Saturday we'll take a break of the lifting part, and we'll run a little bit until December 31st, and then pick a new goal for the new year. So I have 2.5 months to think of what's going to happen next year. But at this point, I think, okay, this is on a serious note. I'm being serious now. I mean, that was serious, but I'm being serious on this one too.
I can tell. On your face.
It just feels good to be strong, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm strong. I'm just saying, like, when you start lifting weights, like, there's a sense of like you feel good, right? You feel strong. You don't feel weak. And I just felt like I haven't lifted weights in a long time, and sort of getting back into it, you just like feel strong, and it makes you feel good, right? And I feel like even so, like, my back is not 100%, but I feel like that has something to do with my being weak, where once I start lifting weights and I start, my core, my back, and everything else starts to strengthen too, and I think it helps my back too. So I just feel like that's what I need to do right now. Those are my goals. Yeah.
So the expression on your face right now is telling me that you just had an epiphany.
No,
and you're pretty proud of it there.
No, I've actually been thinking about that, surprisingly. I know it doesn't sound like that, but
Eddie, I applaud you. Here's what you've identified. You have not been able to have some structured strength goals in a while. I know that your back has been battling. You've gone back and forth with I'm going to run for 10 days. I'm going to do this for 12 days. And now it is the last 12 weeks of the year, right?
Yeah.
Last 12 weeks of the year. And the main focus is weights and protein.
Yep.
Let's get the body solid and strong.
Yep.
If I feel like doing cardio, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I do need to do that for the health of my body. So yeah, I will make time for that. But I think the focus of the goal will be to lift weights to get strong. Yeah.
And I noticed one day when I came back from one of my trips, because I've been traveling every 3 days, that you bought some new shirts. And you've done this a couple times throughout our marriage.
Well, it's usually when I get fat and I can't fit in the other ones.
Like when you are on a gains season, you go and you buy that size large shirt.
Yeah, because
you buy that size large shirt, and I was like, okay.
With the hopes of filling it out.
I know. I know.
No, it's usually because I can't fit in the other ones.
I've been with you long enough to know. And so not only that, you never, or I should say, you shouldn't say never, but you rarely ever buy clothes for yourself. I usually buy your clothes.
It is extremely rare.
Yeah. So I thought, wow, I was gone.
Yeah.
He must be really serious about that gain season.
These goals are very serious.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks.
Well, will I be checking in and tracking that? I will.
Please do.
I will.
I do need some accountability.
Yeah, it's middle of October. I think for a lot of people, they are gearing up. For a lot of our runners, they are gearing up for their last race of the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of races going on right now.
There is. We have Javelina is like one of the biggest ones that's coming up left on the schedule. There's lots of other ones, but like that's a highlighted race at the end of October. We also have CIM, California International Marathon in December. So a lot of people try to qualify for Boston that race. It's a net downhill marathon. So typically people can, they can get a good personal best there. Or if they are aiming for that Boston qualifier, that's a good spot to do it. Of course, there's a handful of other races that are happening. I know there's some 24-hour races. We got the Old Fort Endurance Festival that's happening. But yeah, so I know that during this time as people are reaching for that final race, but we're also leaning into the holiday season and just a change of schedule, change of weather. There's a lot of transitions that happen in these next 2.5 months as we lean into 2025. And so I think the most important thing for all of us is that we do keep some goals on the table for ourselves, because I know for me personally, especially when the kids were young, it would get like so busy. I would get pretty overwhelmed around this time, because like the kids always would have all these like holiday programs and parties in their class and like events, and and then you're preparing for the holidays and there's like more social events than usual. And so all of that side of life felt very busy. I also just felt like too, especially when you and I were both teaching and kind of trying to make ends meet, there was a lot more, I felt like we needed more money. So it was always very tight. And I think that made it stressful too. Cause then you're like, well, I want to buy presents for the kids for Christmas. And then it's like, you have all these events you need to go to. And it's, it was it could be a very stressful time. So I think that putting personal goals, fitness goals on the back burner was only natural to do. But you know what? That's why we're here. That's why the Choose Strong podcast is here.
Exactly why we're here.
To remind you that we are rooting for you, and
yes,
that
we are.
Your goals are important, especially as it pertains to health and fitness goals, because sometimes when life is stressful, when it is around the holidays, when money is tight, getting out for a walk, getting in for a lift, like it helps you clear your mind.
Yep.
And you can burn off some steam or stress or anxiety in that way. Or if you're in a low, if you're having a low day, it's good to get out and get some fresh air. But I also find too, this is also my favorite time of year to go on walks with you, Eddie. So link up with a friend, link up with family, take care of yourself, but don't let go of goals, because guess what? Eddie has just started.
Oh
his
yeah.
goals.
Oh yeah.
So you work on yours, he'll be working on his right alongside you.
Let's do this. All right, back to what I was saying originally about the review. Now, this could go either way. This could be a good review or it could be a bad review. I'm going to let you choose here. All right, this one's from Christy Johnson on Strava. Christy said, I ran 8 miles this morning, and I do walk, run, but I have had to change my intervals since I'm dealing with some right IT hip pain. But I had to stop and walk extra a few times because I couldn't stop laughing at Sally and Eddie during the newest podcast episode. I love them so much. Now, that was her Strava post, and I took it as a review because she was talking about the podcast and how she was doing a workout, but she had to stop and walk extra. So Sally, we made her work out a little bit longer. We slowed her down, is what she's saying.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
We took her out of the zone.
Yes. She could not do her intervals at the right tempo or whatever pace she was trying to hit because she had to walk extra a few times, she said. And she's blaming it on us. So take that as you want. I mean, could be a good review, could be a bad review.
I think it's a good review because you know what? We can never have too much laughter. And I think that we need more of that in the world today.
That's true.
You know?
Okay, well, a little follow-up to this. I did reach out and I apologized to Christy. I said, Christy, I'm sorry that we made your workout a little bit longer
Aw,
and
I
that
love
you
it.
had to stop and walk, but she said it was fine. So we got the okay,
I
and
love
it was
it.
okay to
Christy,
do
thanks
that.
for writing that. I think now it's become a daily thing. Eddie does read me people's Strava titles and the descriptions that go with it. He gets a kick out of it. So, yeah, thanks for those of you that are in the Choose Strong group. It
Yes.
definitely keeps Eddie entertained.
I love
And
it. Okay, moving on. This is someone I want to highlight. This is Tiffany, and she also ran 8 miles. And she said in the Strava group, she said, I ran 8 miles on a treadmill today because it just didn't work to go outside.
Mhm.
So hard to keep motivated on a treadmill, but I got it done. Can we give it up for Tiffany? Because Tiffany is
Yeah.
in the same boat as a lot of people out there, as you were talking about earlier. Seasons are starting to change. It's getting colder. People don't want to go out in the cold, so they're getting on the treadmill. And she didn't want to do it, but she got it done.
Mhm.
Tiffany, 8 miles, boom, nice work.
That's awesome. I think the treadmill, there's a lot of opinions about the treadmill. I am very adamant about applauding those who step onto the treadmill.
Yep.
I guess like in a response to those who say that running on a treadmill, you don't get the same benefit in your workout, or you should be outside. And I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Not all of us have the luxury of having childcare. So some of us have to run on the treadmill while our kids run around.
Mhm.
Also, I think that it's wise to run on a treadmill when it's icy outside. I mean,
yeah.
all it takes is one bad step
One
and you've
slip.
ripped your hamstring.
Yep.
And not everyone likes to post hole through snow,
Yeah.
So depending on what your workout is, the treadmill can be a phenomenal piece in your training program. Also, running is
Necessary.
running. Like
Yeah.
you're getting that heart rate up and you're putting in those miles. I mean, I actually think that running on a treadmill is great mental training because you're not going anywhere. You're in one spot and you're confined to this one space and you have to work through that. So I think I think it's tremendous
Yep.
putting in treadmill training. I've always had treadmill training has been a part of my training from day one. So even before, all the way back to when I was in college.
Yeah.
So I'm 45 now. And from the time I actually started training in high school, I was 16 when I got my first gym pass. I've been running on a treadmill since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I find great value in it, especially if you don't live in a hilly area and you need to do 5-minute hill repeats, or if you are doing a very mountainous race and you're like, I need to be able to run or power hike uphill for an hour. Like there's no mountain that exists that's that long. Not everyone lives in the Alps or at the bottom of, the Colorado Rockies. So I think that, I love promoting the treadmill as a positive piece. You should not be ashamed. So well done, Tiffany.
Speaking of, we got a video about an hour ago from Mackenzie on a treadmill with 3 other girls doing their workout in Flagstaff because it
snowed.
like you said, it snowed. So
yeah, and Coach
put
put them on the treadmill.
Coach put them on the
He's
treadmill.
like, I'm not letting you guys run out there
Yeah.
and slip.
And they got a good workout in, right? So.
Yeah, it was a workout day. And that's the thing too. Like there have been times where even if the sun's out, but then I realize like, whoa, it's probably so busy down at the beach path. Or if it's one of those days, sometimes the wind picks up and we get like 20, 30 mile per hour gusts. I'm like, I just need to lock in and not navigate through crowds, navigate crosswalks, wonder if I'm going to have this gnarly light gust. I just want to lock in this pace.
Yeah.
Like I need to hit this pace and I need to focus on getting this workout done as best as I can. Our training plans are diverse. And so we aren't doing the same thing every single day. You want your body to be able to adapt in different ways. And so, working on the mechanics that come with running, working on leg turnover, hunkering down into an uncomfortable, consistent pace for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's hard. And so that's hard enough in and of itself. And this is why you do see track athletes, road marathoners, they all use the treadmill, for that. It isn't always because, the weather was bad outside. It's like, I need a smooth straightaway for 10 minutes where I can hammer out 5-minute pace. Like, I don't want to be distracted or any other thing in front of me. I just need to know that I can hold this pace. So yeah, we can go ahead and actually put that video in the YouTube. Mackenzie's there with some of her teammates and they are hammering. Mackenzie, and I quote, described her workout as easy. It was like 5 by 1 mile. And she's like, it was so easy. It was like, I only had to do 6-minute pace. And I'm like, okay, you're at 7,000 feet.
Jeez.
And you call your 5 by 1 mile at 6-minute pace easy. I mean, she races, at a faster pace. And so she was like, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It wasn't hard. I'm like, I would be vomiting and probably falling off the treadmill and that was only part of the workout. There was, I don't know, I think they had to hit some 400s like it.
Yeah.
Super fast. But that was fun. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing the treadmill story with us, because I do know a lot of our listeners are going to be transitioning into the basement for most of the rest of the year and through the winter. And so it's nice to give a little bit of encouragement to, and I always think of the first responders, because my good friend Carrie Prince, she's incredible. She's a nurse. Her husband's he was a police officer, now a detective, but they work the weirdest hours. Mm-hmm. And there's been so many times where, that's her only option is the treadmill, is to get on it at really odd hour and just, okay, I'm going to get this done, get off, shower, and get straight into bed. And that works. That helps you stay committed. Yep.
All right, moving on. We have a Nicole from Houston. She wrote in through the Instagram and said, hey, Sally and Eddie, just wanted to write in and tell y'all that I just ran 10 miles for the first time today. Woo woo.
Double digits, man. That is your next level.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this the other day. I said, when someone says they love to run for fitness, right? And a lot of times recreational running, it's like 2 to 3 times a week, and you do like 2 to 3 miles. That's very normal. That's like, it's a great part of any fitness routine, whether you like to lift weights, you like to swim, do yoga, like that's awesome. But if someone drops I just did 10 miles. You are a serious runner.
Check this out. She says, I couldn't even run a mile in high school. And here I am today at 36 running a 10-mile race. And then the half marathon is up next. The Mango Go Gel was one of my gel flavors of choice during that run.
I love it.
Go one more. Love y'all, Nicole.
Oh, Nicole, congratulations. And we are rooting for you in that half marathon. What an exciting time for you. Hitting that double digits. I know for me, I'll never forget it. It's like you're revealing a side of yourself that you didn't know was there.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was capable of doing that. Yep. So how cool is that? Our best years are not behind us. They are ahead of us. And we get to keep on growing and learning. And we get to stay curious and try new things. Yep. So Nicole is moving toward the 13.1.
Let's go, Nicole. All right. Last one I have is an email that came through from someone. I'm going to keep their name kind of quiet. So okay. I don't want to say
kind of
name.
quiet, or
no,
are you just going to omit
full
it?
On
okay.
say nothing
are you
about
whisper
their name.
Or
their name is that's it. All right. Hi, Sally and Eddie. Your podcast is my favorite, and I look forward to listening to it on my runs every week. I emailed you about a year ago about having breast cancer, chemo, radiation, bilateral mastectomy, radiation, and how I was able to go on to continue training and racing, and what a blessing that and your podcast has been in my life. But 2 days ago, I got news that my cancer has returned, and now I am stage 4. It's a lot to wrap my head around. One of my first thoughts was to choose strong. I am scared about what lies ahead, but for now, I can still get out and run, and that means the world to me. I want to let you know that your podcast really does help people in all facets of life. It's not just about running. It's about making choices about how to face life and the things that will unexpectedly show up in it, just like all the things that can happen in a race. My endurance training has prepared me to face the difficulties ahead, I hope, and I look forward to listening and laughing with you and Eddie, whether I'm running or if I get to the point where I have to walk. Know that what you do matters, and it makes a difference in so many people's lives, including mine. I will keep choosing strong every day, whatever unfolds. Whew.
Well, I'm happy that you read that.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty. I do remember responding a year ago to one, this email that came in, and then to get that one is, something that's not easy to read and digest. And, you know, it's just, but it just proves the point too of the people that listen, obviously out there, that are at different seasons of their life, different walks of life, that things are going great, things are going bad, like, and they're all, you know, trying to choose strong in the midst of it. And this is one of those that, you know, she's really digging deep, choosing strong. And, you know, I know the whole Choose Strong community is rooting and cheering for this person that wrote in, because they're one of us, they're family. And, we do thank you for listening to us, and then also for writing in, and, you know, and having a great perspective on what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that there are listeners right now who are either also battling cancer. That is not an uncommon message that we get. I think this is one of our first stage 4. Yeah, cancer sucks.
Yeah.
Directly and indirectly. We know, you know, people have family members that are going through it, and it's hard because there's a lot of unknowns. You know, all of the details. Every time you go to a doctor, it doesn't always make sense. And I think it's one of the best things about being a part of a community, and knowing that people support you and they love you, and that you can share what it is that you're going through. So in this case, really appreciate you sharing that, because that's real. I know it hits home for a lot of us. I think every time I hear these stories too, it definitely takes me back to some of the harder seasons in my life. And, you know, coming out of rough seasons, or being in the middle of what just feels like, you know, a cloud of despair. I look back now and I realize, like, none of that is, you know, it can be used for something, you know, and sometimes we go through difficult situations because it simply increases our capacity for compassion. And being able to sit with someone and empathize and say, I understand, and just listen is very powerful. You know, sometimes we don't have the answers, and finding words of comfort can be very difficult. Finding, you know, how can I respond? What do I say? A lot of times it's just, I'm here.
Yeah.
If you want to cry, if you want to vent in your frustration, because many times that's the hardest part about going through stuff. You feel alienated in your pain. You feel alienated in your struggle, frustration, sadness, and your loss. And as humans, we desire to be understood, to be seen, and to be connected. And so when we share things like this, it reminds us of our humanness, but it also gives us an opportunity just to extend our time, a listening ear, and just be there for people. So the fact that she said, I thought about the phrase choosing strong. It's that, of course, that hits home for us.
Yeah.
And that's what we all hope to do when we're in a rough time in our life. And, you know, for as much as we use the running as the metaphor for life, this is exactly it.
Yep.
You know, we work through rough patches in the middle of a race. Let's take that when you apply it to life in situations like this. And that's very powerful.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, moving on now. We have some Q&A.
Q&A. So you sent out a request.
Little request.
You sent out a request to the community, and what was your...
A little box, like, hey, drop me a question that you want me to ask Sally McRae.
Well, you didn't ask. I didn't get to see any of those responses. I didn't know you were doing that. I just saw it pop up in a story, and I was like, interesting.
Interesting. And what did you say as you responded to that?
I said...
Did you say anything? Did you ask a question?
I did.
What did you ask?
Why are you a fart head?
Why are you a fart head?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I have an answer to that one. My response was, "What are you, 8?"
Yeah.
I think that was
Well,
my
I
response.
was just speaking your language.
Okay.
So, okay. Here we
All right.
go.
On a serious note, Sal, I'm going to ask you one. What do you do when you've completely lost your mojo?
Ooh.
You know, you're training for a race and you're grinding, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to do it right now. What do you say to that?
Yeah. I think that's something that it doesn't matter how much you love something. I mean, generally speaking, whatever it is that we love in life, we enjoy doing. There's either a moment of tension, pressure, a loss of motivation, a season where like I don't want to do that right now. And I think having gone through a lot of seasons of running, being an athlete for most of my life, like competing for most of my life, whether I was in soccer or running, the more that you hit those patches and you choose to just kind of keep working through it, you then embrace it as a fact of the journey. Like, I love it right now. Like, that long run was amazing, or that workout felt great, or I'm getting stronger. Wow, I feel really fit. But also holding open the other hand and realizing, like, I know I'm going to have some hard I'm going to get injured. I'm going to get sick. The race isn't going to go the way that I want it to. You know, I might put on some weight and I don't feel great, you know, when I'm running, or the joints are going to hurt, or I'm really tired, or the stress of life just does not make this fun. And I think that it's just been years and years of putting in the reps. And that's really what it's about. I think Mojo, this is a very common question. I think I've done like a whole episode on it because it's been so popular throughout my career. I think mainly because I am a parent.
Yeah.
So people are like, how in the world do you stay motivated when you are trying to raise kids, run a business, and then train at a high level? And I'm not going to say that it's easy or that I have any superpowers. But I will say I have to separate the feeling in that moment. So I have to kind of separate from that. I can't rely so much on how I'm feeling all the time. And I do have to highlight this. What I'm not saying is to not take care of yourself. You know, that's one thing. But I think all too often we will judge ourselves and we judge situations in regard to how we're feeling in that moment. And so if I have a fight with my spouse and I'm angry and I'm upset and I ate a whole carton of ice cream because I just ate my feelings in that, and I see that I need to go run 5 miles, and I'm like, no, I'm not going because I don't feel good.
Is this a personal experience that you just had?
No, I'm actually making this up. But like,
okay.
It's just a sight, like on every, like physically, I now feel terrible, right?
Yeah.
And like mentally, emotionally, I feel like this heaviness. If I base my run now on how I feel, I'm not getting that run in. And what has worked for me over the years is, regardless of how I feel, just put your shoes on and walk out. Stop thinking about how you're feeling. Stop thinking about how you're motivated. And sometimes we're not even always motivated by the goal. So especially the further the way you are from it.
Yeah.
So if you have a 6-month goal of training for the New York City Marathon, and you're like 3 weeks into your training plan, it's actually a lot easier to be kind of lax in your training because you're like, I have so much time to train.
Yeah.
I'll change that to the next week, or I'll move that over. And, you know, and I say this with knowing I've done this before, especially when the kids were little. It's like, I don't feel great. I'm sleep deprived.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day.
Get that running.
Yeah. Kids are driving me crazy. And by kids, I mean Eddie is one of them.
Okay. Another made up story, hopefully.
Yeah. So I think it's taken me a lot of years to understand that I can still walk outside and at least do something. And that's where that term, something is better than nothing, done is better than perfect. That's very powerful, because that's actually what gets you past not focusing so much on motivation.
Yeah.
We're not going to be motivated 100% of the time. You'll probably be motivated like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, like, and that could be like because you like the workout that's scheduled for that day. It's because the sun is shining, like it's beautiful. Who doesn't want to be outside when it's beautiful out,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, when it's raining and you are negative money in your bank account and you know your kid is blowing diarrhea up out of a diaper, like why do you want to go run?
Yeah. Maybe you do want to get out of there.
Yeah, maybe you do want to run far away. I just think there is value in doing something consistently.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's actually sticking to that plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very hard thing. Like whenever I've coached athletes, it's like this mind shift when I try to explain that to them. It's almost like I've given them this new freedom that they didn't understand that they had all along.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come to me like, I didn't do the 8 miles exactly how you said at this pace. I'm like, that's all right. What were you able to do? Well, I went out, I did like a walk jog for like 3 miles. Awesome. You actually tried.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference. There's a huge difference there between just, I'm stressed, I'm not doing anything to I'm having a really rough day or it's not even like that things are falling apart in your life. It's just, man, this training is making me tired. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if like, oh my gosh, it's like so long and laborious. I say keep showing up in that because it teaches you something about yourself and your brain starts to compute these things and remember these things that, oh, John does not give up even when he doesn't feel good. Like John keeps going because that's what we do. And so focusing on doing something instead of whether or not you're motivated is a power tool that you need to keep in your toolbox.
Not to bring it back to me, but I'm going to bring it back to me. I just thought of this, but okay. So my goals, right, are to lift weights for the next 2.5 months.
Yes.
And big thing for me, as you know, and other people probably go through the same thing, is that, you know, when you get on a consistent plan, or if you're very consistent, you don't want to break that consistency up because then it's hard to get back on track. And so for me, I know the other night, like the day got away from me and I was taking Isaiah to the soccer game. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have time to do, because I was doing this program on my phone, a video program where all these exercises, I needed all this gym equipment. So I'm like, I can't get to the gym. I don't have time. And I kind of don't want to get to the gym to do all this. And so I'm like, you know what? I just need to do something. I need to be consistent if my goal is to, you know, become stronger over time. And I knew in my head, like, I have to just get in the garage and do something. Yeah. So I did. I went and kind of did a couple exercises, 3 exercises, and spent 25 minutes in there. But my point is that what you were saying, it's definitely the mind, right? That's what it was. It was like my mind said, no, you need to get in there and do something. It's not going to be what you were supposed to do, but you're going to get 25 minutes. And by the time you're at that soccer game, you're going to be glad that you did. And yeah, I was glad that I did something. It wasn't the best, and it wasn't even the best workout, but I was able to get in there and to do something and check off my day. Okay, I got exercise in. So, so again, it's not about me, but it is right now. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm a great example. You know,
the small wins, like every time you do complete something, though, is, and I think this is why we keep coming back to Eddie's goals. There's something that you feel in that. Yeah. You know, and that's where, and that's why I say, I'm not saying ignore your feelings. Like, your feelings do matter. That's why we have them.
Yep.
So I think sometimes I can say this and I sound hardened and like, you know, as if I want you to not feel. But I think it is important to know that sometimes we ourselves can be the number one reason why we don't complete a goal. And we can't blame anyone else. You know, we can't blame social media, or, you know, if we didn't have great encouraging parents or coaches or friends. At the end of the day, we're the ones that make the choice. So, you know, when the rain has fallen and, you know, your body doesn't feel like 100%, you still, and you are an able body that's able to put on shoes and walk out the door. Celebrate that. Yeah. Celebrate that and say, okay, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes And if I can get this body moving into a run, I'm going to aim for 1 mile. And that's helpful too. I can't tell you how many times I have not had a good day and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out for 3 miles. Like I'll tell myself this, which for what I do, 3 miles is not hard for me.
That's for like me. I would say let's go out for like a half a mile.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1
Okay.
mile, half a mile. Everyone's different,
Yeah.
but like depending on what you normally train for, what your normal long run is or
Yeah.
your normal average is, I think that you just set yourself up first. I'm going to make a small gain here. And I know all I have to do is run to the end of the neighborhood and back, and I've got 3 miles in.
Mhm.
There have been countless times where that then is the plan. I take originally I was going to do 15 miles, but I'm just going to do 3. And eventually, as I get past that 1 mile, 2 mile, I'm like, I'll keep going. I'll go 1 more mile, 1 more mile. And pretty soon, all the miles that I intended are complete. Are they at the pace that I wanted to? Did I feel amazing the whole time? Probably not. But I think I pushed through in that one training session. I pushed through a belief that I had about myself before I started. And the belief before I started was, I don't feel good. I don't think I can get this done. But choosing to continue, that is powerful. Your brain is your strongest muscle, and that's where it's trained.
Yeah.
That's where it gets strong.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get strong when you feel amazing in that long run that you just nailed and you had all the energy and you felt fit and fast and incredible. That's enjoying your hard work. And you do deserve to have those feelings. You deserve that. We don't feel that all the time. And so to gain strength mentally, it comes in the challenges. And the challenges aren't when you get an injury and when you are sick. I mean, that's a very straightforward, okay, that's going to put me on the couch, right? But a lot of times our greatest challenges are the stories that we tell ourselves. It's what we believe to be true about ourselves. And when you get used to telling yourself that you're not capable of something, when you get used to telling yourself, well, when I feel this tired, I shouldn't do anything at all, that becomes your normal. And that becomes the space in which you operate in. And so I say, break down those barriers, break down those walls in which you've built up around yourself. Or it could be what other people have built up around you, telling you how you should operate, what you are capable of, or what your body type should and shouldn't do. I'm going to hear that all the time.
Yeah.
My doctor said I'm not really built for this. Really? Now tell me a little bit about your doctor, because your doctor is a normal human being like you and me. And your doctor has certain beliefs about themselves. And I'm not saying that we should disregard doctors, but when it comes down to just looking at someone and saying, you can't run a marathon. I mean, I told this story a long time ago, the story of Holly, who it took her 20 years to run a marathon. She had a physical therapist tell her for years that she was not built to run a marathon. You know, she's almost 6 feet tall. She had a large frame. And I said, well, I don't believe that. You know, that's bullcrap. I think you can. And after 20 years and many, many attempts, she finally did. Now, I think, too, the pressure we put on ourselves in this, how do I keep my mojo, is we always want to feel good and we want to be the best. And so sometimes we tell ourselves, well, I don't think I'm built to do that. I'm just not that, because we are always looking at the people that do it as a career.
Mm.
It's like, I can't play football because, I'm not, Tom Brady. Well, like the teeny tiny, percentage of people that make it to stardom in the NFL, that's one thing. But you saying that you can't play football because you're not like Tom Brady, that's ridiculous. And I think sometimes we do that in the sport of running too. We look through magazines and we look at online and what the Olympians look like. And we think that if I don't look like that and run that fast and, I'm not like all of them in my training, that's just hilarious if I actually think that I can go out and run. Well, all looks aside, what do you want to do? If you have a desire and a passion and actual enthusiasm in anything, then go after it. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why some people are so interested and excited about fly fishing. Mm-hmm. And so interested and excited and just very interested in ballroom dancing, in watercolor. opera singing. And that is not for all people.
Yeah.
You know, we all have we are knit with different gifts and different desires and different curiosities, and I don't think it's always wise to just look at how the pros are doing something and think that unless I look like that or can perform like that, then I don't fit. And you know, that's been my entire career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as soon as I was signed with Nike, the response I got from the community was, well, you're big.
Yeah.
And you're fat and you don't look like an endurance athlete. And I didn't look like the little teeny tiny whippets that you see that run marathons. And there is, genetically, it would be great to be like short, petite, this little tiny frame. Scientifically, you're going to move across the ground a little bit faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what I have learned over the years is I don't need to look a certain way in order to do what I love. If I really love it, I'm just going to do the best at it with the body that's given to me and see where that takes me. So, Mojo is powerful. Motivation. This is a great topic. Thank you to whoever wrote this in because it's real. And I know that a lot of our listeners, we all deal with this throughout the year. All of us. And at some point in a training plan, we deal with it. At some point in our career, at some point in our relationship, like this relationship is tiring me out and it's like, it's hard to be consistent. And so, focus on the goal and what it is that you want to do. And that will take you a lot further than if you focus on whether or not you're motivated.
Yeah. All right. Well, you were talking about how, you know, if you got into a fight with your spouse and you would go and just eat a carton of ice cream. We had a question come in from Allie and Emmy, and they are daughters of whoever wrote this in. These two girls, they want to know what Sally's favorite ice cream flavor is. So if you had to get out that carton of ice cream, what flavor are you pulling out on that one?
100% chocolate peanut butter.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah. 100%.
Allie, Emmy, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Chocolate peanut butter
ice cream. And it's like the peanut butter, it's like the big chunks of peanut butter. It's like swirled in there. And there's got to be a lot of peanut butter in it. It's in my opinion, it's just it's protein.
You know,
it's a protein treat.
This is another reason why we were meant to be, because you can have that whole carton and I will never touch that because that sounds gross to me. But I have my own and you have your own, and that's how this whole thing works. So anyways, Allie and Emmy, there you go. Another wonderful fact. Ice cream flavor is chocolate peanut butter.
Thank you, Allie and Emmy. Are these sisters, friends?
I don't know. They are daughters.
Mother.
They're daughters. They're daughters of the lady that wrote that question.
Oh, okay.
All right.
How cute.
Second one.
These are daughters that live at home? Like, are these little kids?
I don't know. Like, I just know that they're daughters, okay? Don't ask all these questions.
Okay. Well, if you are watching Sweet Girls, please ignore my husband's reaction right there. He just got frustrated.
You expect me to know every detail.
I'm waving at YouTube to Allie and Emmy.
Hi.
And
yeah,
I'm very glad that you asked that question. Ice cream is one of my favorite topics. And Eddie over here, when we were dating, used to take me out for ice cream quite a bit.
I still do.
And yes, he still does. But that was just a staple in our dating relationship was ice cream. Yeah, great question.
All right, let's go to this next one. This one is, okay, so how do you train around being sick? So this obviously moving into the winter, a lot of people start to get sick here, and they've been training for races and, and they start to get sick. So this guy, he said, do you auto-regulate and do recovery days, or do you push through?
Mm-hmm. I think the short answer here is yes. I do continue to train when I am sick, and I do auto modify the workout. So this is twofold because I don't know what sickness he is talking about, and I think that that's only something that we can determine
unique
personally.
To you. Yeah.
If it's bronchitis, I think, hey, you actually should take a step back and
Yeah.
just let your body rest, because that can actually get worse. So
So have some wisdom as you're kind of
yeah.
deciding.
So
but
for runners,
typically,
and here's a tool, because a lot of coaches will say this: if once it gets in your lungs, you are done doing any workouts. So you should not be doing workouts. If you want to do something, what I would say to those athletes, especially if they're like, oh my gosh, I have a race coming up, or, I actually feel okay. It's just when I get my heart rate up, I'm coughing, I don't breathe well. So I like to do a couple things, and I usually do hang out at home and do this, but I will like walk slowly uphill on the treadmill. I'll get on the bike. I also might just do like a really chill weight session. I'll do Pilates. I'll stretch. Like there's so many things we can do to work on our body that help us in a race that don't have to be like these hard hitting workouts. So if you do find yourself with like the flu or bronchitis, this is the other thing too. If you're like throwing up, like stay in bed. If there's stuff that's dealing with your stomach and your intestines, like rest is the best thing you can do in order to get back to doing what you love as fast as you can. So it really comes down to you listening to your body and understanding what your diagnosis is. So I typically do not get sick. And if I do get sick, I get over it pretty fast. With the exception of last year when I was doing the Grand Slams, I didn't realize how sick I was when I was doing Tahoe, and then that kind of snowballed for a few weeks. So, but that was like once in a decade type sickness for me.
Yeah.
And I attribute to why it took me so long to get better was because I just had completely beat up my body and stressed it out. And so when you are sick, your immune system is stressed out. It's working so hard to heal and fight off that illness. And so you are more tired and your heart rate is higher already. So adding in a workout is just further stressing it out and elongating your recovery time. It's funny because I literally just talked about this with Mackenzie and her roommates over dinner the other night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because one of them had bronchitis.
Oh, interesting.
She was like, but I had to miss the workout. And I was like, girl, yes, that's good. Like,
Yeah.
especially when it's in your lungs. Like,
Yeah.
coach made a good call.
Yeah.
So recovery days, pushing through it, I really think that is individual. And so, and that decision has to be made on the day. So sometimes we can feel like really terrible, like the first 2 days. And the best thing is day one, sleep, just sleep, drink water. Sleep is healing. And that is really good. Day two, okay, go for a walk, do some stretches, do some yoga, do some mobility. You can walk on the treadmill or ride really slowly on the bike if you feel like you want to move. Heart rate stays low the whole time. Heart rate literally stays in the recovery zone. There should not be hard breathing. If you don't feel good, you're done. Get back in bed. So that's how I personally regulate things. The goal is to get better, not to get worse. And when you are working out while you're sick, you're walking a fine line.
Cool. All right. A couple of questions came in regarding poles.
Mm-hmm.
Some were asking, they don't know where to start in terms of what size to buy. What's the kind of general rule there?
Mm-hmm.
But also asking what poles do you run with? But
Mm-hmm.
so that's a question. But then the second part is, how do you recommend someone to train with poles if they've never used them before?
Great question, because when I first started trail running, you were not allowed to use poles anywhere in the United States. I think there was only a couple races that allowed them. And then in 2016, when I started racing primarily internationally, and I did that for about 5 years straight, it was uncommon that you didn't see everyone at the start line with poles. And I was like, oh, is this an American thing that we don't use poles unless you're hiking? Now, with the rise of more mountain races, longer races, and just realizing that people all over the world use poles regardless of the distance and the terrain, they are much more accepting. And so, yeah, great question. We're trying to learn how to use them, what size we use, what's the technique. For those of you that are cross-country skiers or winter sport athletes, I feel like you naturally click into poles a lot easier, and you understand how to use them a little bit better. So it was a learning curve for me. I have tried all different types of poles. My favorite pole brand is Lecky or Lakey. They are one of my sponsors. I will put a link here in the show notes for you if you want to go ahead and click that and see the poles that I use. I believe I put them on my LTK shop too. Yes, I am on LTK, which is hilarious. But I do have a gear section in there, so we'll go ahead and put that link in there, and you can click on that and see the ones that I use, because there's a few that I use. So Lakey has this pole system. You slide on this little fingerless glove. It's more of a strap, and it goes around the bottom part of your palm, but there's a little hoop on the inside, and the poles click into that. So your poles are essentially locked to your hands, which if you're a mountain athlete, this is very advantageous, especially if you are running through technical terrain where sometimes poles get stuck in between the rocks or stuck in like a gnarly bush and the pole can drop down. Before I started using Lakey, I'd always have poles like fall off down the side of a ridge or, get stuck in the ground because I didn't have a good grip on them. So that's why I like them. The other reason why I like Lakey is because they are very light and they fold up very fast. So I have been using this brand since 2018, and it is hands down my favorite pole. I'd say all of my friends who are competitors, they also use that pole as well. Mm-hmm. There are other good ones out there, and not everyone likes the click-in system, but I think Lakey does now have other systems with just the strap on its own. You don't have to use the gloves. And I will say, I don't even always click in. A lot of the times I don't. So the size that you get depends on your height. And if you go on Lakey.com, you can determine that there. They should have a chart for you. You put in how many centimeters tall you are, and then it'll tell you the range of pole that you should buy. Some poles are adjustable. So the Lakey poles make a Vario for various, which can be adjusted, which is really cool because you can let friends use them. Let's say you and your spouse want to share the same pole. Like if someone is going on their long run and the next day someone else is, it's nice because poles are expensive. They can run anywhere between $150 and $300. It's not a cheap piece of gear. And so I do like the Lakey Vario poles for that. Because those ones you can adjust. The ones I use fit my height. I'm 5'6", and so they are made for a range of height. I think it's within like 3 inches. You use a certain size, and they collapse very fast. So yeah, poles are great. They're like an extra set of legs, especially in the later stages of the race, and there's a learning curve in getting used to them, especially trying to balance eating and drinking when you have poles in your hands. So it is important. If you are going to start using poles, use them every single long run. If you plan to use them for a race, you need to understand how they just affect you when you're running and your focus. Because some people get so locked into using their poles and like an hour and a half passes and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't had anything to eat or drink for the last hour and a half. So that's something I personally always have to work on and discipline myself. That's why I love bottles in the front or having a straw with a bladder, because you can drink pretty quick with still having the poles in your hands. But yeah, there's a lot to learn with the good old poles.
I've never used poles in a run. But I do want to point out that my first time ever using poles was a few years ago, actually. And when I went cross-country skiing, that was the first time I ever used poles in my life.
When we lived in Bend.
Yep. Yep. And for you to say it's like extra set of arms or legs, it was definitely what I felt like, because it kept me upright. Straight up.
Yeah, kept you upright a couple times. Yeah, I have a few really good pictures of you laying in the snow when we lived in Bend. Yeah, I might have to put one of those for the YouTube watchers today. The
YouTube watchers.
Yeah, it is. There's people that live in snow for 8 months, so it's.
Yeah.
That's just like the main part of being outside, You're cross-country skiing, backcountry skiing. And so it's pretty normal then to transfer into trail running in warmer days on technical terrain to have poles, and they're great. So if you're not a winter athlete, they can feel weird when you first get to using them. So
all right, I'm gonna take you back, Sal.
Are
I'm
you
gonna
taking me back?
take you back
How far
in
back?
time. I'm thinking we're going about 20 years back.
Oh, oof.
All right, so
20 years back, I was pregnant with Mackenzie.
What would you say to 20? This is almost, it's not exact, but almost 20. What would you say to 26-year-old Sally?
Oh, wow.
What would you say to her?
Aww.
You have almost a child, so hey.
Almost a child.
You're almost there. You're almost a mom.
Yeah.
What would you say to almost mom, Sally?
Yeah.
At that season of your life?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that, I mean, not knowing, right? You don't know what's ahead of you, but now looking back, like, what would you say to yourself if you knew what you were going to be involved with and doing 20 years later?
I'm curious if the person who wrote this is at that stage in their life and they're feeling like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
with my
you know,
life?
and I think I'm almost like 100% sure that this person also said, had a parenting question about little kids. So I'm assuming this person is 26 with a couple little kids. So
yeah,
that might provide some context.
By the time we were 28, we had 2 kids.
Right.
And, you know, as you remember, because I think those early years of parenting, you always remember, they kind of stick out to you so vividly. And I think it's because it is an intense transition.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you look back on your life and there's like these intense transitions in your life, going from elementary school to like being in high school and even like going through puberty and like all that stuff. Like there's like some intense moments in your life that they really stick out as being pivotal as part of your growth and really the journey that you're on. They affect your relationships and choices and everything. So when I think back to being 26 years old, this is a great question to answer right now because the group of people that I was talking to, one of the slides on my presentation was a list of all of my jobs. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting whenever I start putting a presentation together, I always want to make sure that it's customized for the people that I am speaking to. Mm-hmm. And I love that slide so much because I realize by the time I was 26, I had worked already in 10 different industries. And I was a brand new mom, and I had this very intense desire to be a stay-at-home mom. And I think it was intensified because, one, I couldn't wait to be a mom, and having lost my mom so young, when Mackenzie was born, it was like this wound was just ripped open all over again, realizing the great loss that I had, because all my girlfriends, we all had kids at the same time. Yeah. And all around me, all my girlfriends were getting help. Yeah. And it was like, oh yeah, my mom comes over like 2 or 3 times a week, and I can take a nap and a shower, and I get to go grocery shopping. And, and I need to make sure, like, Eddie's mom was incredible. So all of Eddie's siblings, we all had kids at the same time too. So, Eddie's parents were incredibly helpful, but it was spread thin, and we were all living in different cities. And it's, but I think just at the heart of it, just that deep connection to, the mom that I had, and realizing like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do know that I want to be everything to Mackenzie that my mom was to me. And I wanted to be home so bad. And that at 26 is when we moved back from Virginia. Mm-hmm. We were living in Falls Church. Reston, I think, was the last city that we lived in. Mackenzie was 4 months old. And we moved back to Huntington Beach. And it was like this, I don't think there's any way to put it. It was kind of like a crappy little apartment. Yeah. It wasn't nice. And, but I loved it. I mean, I loved that we were back closer to your family at this time in our life. that move was very expensive, and you were going back, you had just found a job as a teacher, but at this time California was laying off teachers right and left.
Yep.
And so you were put into a position that you had never been in before. You were teaching severely emotionally disturbed middle school and high school kids. You did not go to school for that. You went to school for elementary education. And so you were doing something that was way out of your comfort zone, that was emotionally exhausting, because all of these kids, I think most of the kids were in foster care and had come from very sad home lives. So that's what you brought home because you have a pastor's heart. And so you wore that coming home. And then I'm like, I'm not making any money right now. And that move was really expensive. So this is also where we started to put our lives on a credit card. And I think at 26, it was easy to have days where I just felt like the heaviness of trying to figure out what it meant to be a mom, a good wife, and live on a very tight budget, be supportive of a husband that was doing the best he could in a new job he'd never done before. I mean, I felt like our lives didn't make sense. And I'm the kind of person that I like big picture thinking. I like to think about a goal that's like down the road and let's work towards that. And at this time in my life, it was like everything I could just to get through the day. You know, Eddie would come home and how was your day? And it's like, I was still in my pajamas. Maybe I went for a run with Mackenzie in the stroller. And if I did, I was still wearing those workout clothes. And I decided to try an MLM, which was selling this discount, medical insurance. And I was flyering the neighborhood every other day. I was on the phone constantly. And then I think I got my first paycheck and it was $61. And I was like, I have a college education. I have a college degree. What am I doing? And that's when I asked Eddie, I said, would you be okay if I just went after a personal trainer certification? There's no way we can afford it, but will you let me put it on a credit card? And I promise you, I will work as hard as I can to build a business. I will pay that off. And I just feel like that's the only way I can stay home with Mackenzie is I have to build something. And thankfully, I've had a husband that's believed in me since day one, and he actually believed those words. And in less than a year, I did exactly what I said I was going to do, and also built up a very profitable business, which the following year we moved out of our apartment. Eddie got a job at a church. My fitness business really started to grow, and I got pregnant with Isaiah. And so what are the things that I would tell 26-year-old Sally? Keep working. Yeah. And keep believing, because I had no idea from 26 to 34. I had no idea what was going to happen the next month. And my life continued to change so much, because I'll tell you what, from 26 to 36, at 36, I had been a professional athlete for 2 years. At 36, we were living in another city. And so it's very exciting, I think, that when we are in this point of pressure and we actually feel uncomfortable and we're like, I'm getting 4 hours of sleep, I don't have any money in my bank account, and I hate my job. What am I doing? Well, the best thing that we can do is just show up and we keep working, we keep trying. You know, I learned at a really young age, because I often worked 2 and 3 jobs. There was one job I really loved doing, but I probably wasn't making very good money. So that's why I got another job. And it was like the one job was fueling me to do this other job that I really loved. And that's what the fitness business was for me for a long time. And, you know, I'd always do something else on the side. So it was like, I think I was always a server. You know, I'd waitressed at night, and I was always looking for other ways to bring in just a little bit of income. I think even when I was running my fitness business, I was also babysitting, you know? So it was like, I really believe that it's important to learn for ourselves that just because you are successful in something and you're bringing in all that money, that doesn't necessarily always mean that you're operating in what you were meant to do. And I think that it's so important that you do pursue what you were meant to do, the things that you actually like really love and that you were made to do, and figure out what that is. Because I could have very easily just gone back and clicked into a job with a salary and medical benefits and all of that. I mean, I had a college degree and I had a lot of experience in so many other industries at that point. But I wanted to stay home with my kids. Like, that was very important for me personally. That isn't important for everyone. Like, sometimes it's the dad staying home. And I know I have a lot of friends who find a lot of fulfillment and joy. And well, we have a lot of friends too who are like doctors and nurses and do some very incredible line of work. And so for me personally, having lost my mom so young, that was very personal to me. I just want to stay home with my babies and spend as much time with them as possible. And I went from there. So I think that, believing in our work, also seeing the value in the hard work, seeing the value in the struggle. As I said earlier, that's actually how you get stronger. That's how you grow. That's how you learn how to build something great. Be in the practice of keeping hope at the forefront. This stinks right now, or it's not really making that much money, but I have great hope for what's down the road. I know this can become something great. And that's even in the midst of failure. So it took a long time. We look at our business now, Eddie, it's like, it took a very long time to get to what we have today. Decades. It wasn't overnight. So 26-year-old Sally, you've come a long way, baby.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Good answer. I like that one. All right. This one actually came in to me, and this is in a weird, honest way. I've actually thought about this question and how I'd answer this quite a bit. So this one said, would Eddie rather fight 10 toddler-sized chickens or 10 chicken-sized toddlers? Now, I've actually thought about this answer, and it's kind of a weird situation that I would find myself in if I ever had to decide to,
now, was it Kevin,
what I'd rather do.
Kyle?
I don't know who wrote this.
Who was it that sent this in? This has to be one of your buddies.
It was probably, I don't know who it was, honestly.
So good.
So 10, okay, if you think about it, 10 toddler-sized chickens, those are good-sized chickens. Those are good-sized chickens. And you put those up against 10 chicken-sized toddlers. Now, I've been a teacher. I taught for quite a few years, and I taught first grade, second grade, just, on the other side of toddlers. But I've had a couple toddlers live with me for a couple years. And I'm going to have to say that I would rather fight 10 toddler-sized chickens. I don't want anything to do with toddlers. I don't care how small they are, because they will just drain me emotionally and wear me out. And if there's 10 of them, for sure, I'd be done. So I think based on my reflexes and my strength, I think I can take on toddler-sized chickens, and for the win, I would take them.
Okay, well, I'm very happy that you chose that, because listeners,
everyone was dying
were you
to know.
Also greatly alarmed by this question and the fact that he actually considered fighting babies?
I would not fight, like, physically.
The question is, would you rather fight toddlers or chickens? The size doesn't matter, okay? This isn't about size. This is, do you want to fight toddlers or chickens? And you're like, I thought really long and hard about this.
I actually thought about this
and
answer.
Here's what I came up with. Does that even deserve any time of thinking? Like, you spent time thinking about it.
I did, yeah.
Right.
Sadly.
Okay. Well,
hey, if we're just trying to be real and honest on this podcast.
We are.
And
well,
that is
between
my real
you
and
cutting
honest
people
answer.
off the road all the time and whether or not you're going to fight babies, you're really starting to diminish that reputation of a sweetheart. And there's a whole nother side of Eddie.
Yeah,
there
really
side
is.
That would consider fighting toddlers. So
Oh man. All
Well, I'll
right.
tell you what, whoever
Sorry.
sent that in, thanks for the good laugh.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I don't know anyone that actually loves babies more than Eddie.
I do
And
love some
this is
babies.
true.
Yeah.
He wanted babies long before I did. And I don't think we could ever go out in public when he doesn't see a toddler and he doesn't elbow me. Look at how cute.
They are.
So
They are
cute. Don't you
cute.
miss that age? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really precious. But that was a fun
Yeah.
question.
All right. So, Sal, why don't you end with going back to what you
Mhm.
were talking about earlier about the question you addressed in the talk today about guys putting in work for, a year and a half, not finding the results that he wants. And how did you address that? How did you answer that question?
Yeah, I actually pointed out first of all, when we are in a season where it's like we keep on running into dead ends and we actually are working hard. I think that can be frustrating for us when the messaging is always, well, you need to put the work in. Are you dedicated? Are you disciplined? It's like, yeah, actually I am. And I keep failing and it's not turning out the way that I want it to, or and sometimes it's just unfortunate loss, like sometimes people have really bad luck. And the story that I paralleled this with was, and this is on a running level, so it's kind of surfacey. I can definitely use some moments in my real life, but this is a really simple picture that I use to paint what it looks like when we just choose to change our perspective and realize that every time we choose to work through difficulty, we are setting ourselves up for greatness down the road. We're setting ourselves up, and it doesn't even need to be greatness. That sounds like such a motivational speaker thing, but like we're setting ourselves up to just be a better version of ourselves, to better endure what is down the road. And we don't know what's down the road. And I think that's a hard part for all of us. I know as a kid, I had a very long season of sadness and trauma and unfortunate events over and over and over again, to the point where, and if you've read my book and it's, right there at that last chapter, I am talking about my life is not getting better. And when you look back at the many years of pain and hurt, what I know is that it'll probably continue in that way because that's the way it always is. And it's easy to feel like that when we have spent a long time in a cloud of despair. And so I use the example of Badwater 2018. This is the first year that I signed up to do this race. Now, this is a race I had my eyes on since before I was an ultra runner. Before I did my first race, I had read about it. I knew about Scott Jurek. And I felt like that race was kind of mysterious. And I actually, throughout my career, went kind of back and forth as to whether or not I wanted to do it. 2018, I signed up and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And I trained, in my opinion, the hardest I had ever trained for any race. I was fit, I was fast, I was ready. And even in my mind, I thought I could probably win this overall. I mean, so much pride. And I stood at that start line thinking no one trained as hard as I did. It was a hot year, 130 degrees. And 30 miles into that race, I had what I've never experienced before, but it was like the most horrific cramping. And it continued for the entire duration of that race. And there were some other things that also kind of snowballed into that, and I think a lot of runners experience this in Badwater, but, there's a lot of vomiting and you're just delirious from that heat. But the cramping is something that I could not get a handle on. And I was very frustrated. And, and people after the race reached out to me. They're like, oh, you probably had your electrolytes. Like, you didn't do your calories right. You didn't do this right. You did this wrong and da-da-da-da. And I have always, even at this time in my career, I'd really prided myself in doing research and what have other people done? What has worked for other people? And then practicing that in long runs. And, halfway into that race, I was so upset. I was so upset that I had trained so hard, and especially as a mom, because you're making sacrifices.
Mm.
And so not only is that disappointment in your performance coming, but you're just like, I've disappointed my sponsors, I've disappointed my family. And it's just the weight of this failure is even heavier than it was before, because now it's not just the cramping, it's just I'm moving so slowly through the desert. Like, why should I even continue? And I look over at my crew car, which is made up of great friends and ultra runners themselves who had given their time to be in the flaming hot heat of Death Valley to get me to the finish line. And when I looked at them, I realized, like, this isn't just about me. And we're going to get across that finish line as a team. And I can't just quit because I don't feel good. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice that was made by these people for me to be out there. I finished that race in 7th place, and I did not go back to it again until 2021. And when I went back to the race, I thought I'm going to train, very dedicated, hard, get fit, get fast. And I did. But there was one part of my training that I changed. I'd fly down from Bend, Oregon every week for 6-7 weeks before the race. And I'd spend half of the week in Lone Pine. Lone Pine is a very, very tiny town. And Mount Whitney Portal Road is right there. It's right across the street from my hotel. And you can run up Mount Whitney Portal Road. It is a 12 and a half, 13-mile run up the road, 5,000 feet of climbing. And that's where the finish line is, to Badwater 135. I ran up that road so many times. I would do repeats on it. And I would envision, here I am at the end of this race, and I have this massive climb I have to do. And I'd tell myself, okay, when I'm tired, this is how I'm going to run. Even though I'm exhausted, this is how I'm going to run. And my mileage is really high at this point. I think I was kind of topping out at about 140 miles a week, but on average running between 100 and 120 miles a week. I was very fit. And then other days I would run out into Death Valley and I would have layers on and I would just practice being in the heat. And I would go through these moments in my mind, these scenarios that could potentially happen in the race. Sally, what are you going to do if you're throwing up? What are you going to do? Think of that, like right now. Here we are in Death Valley. We are running and you could be throwing up right now. How are you going to respond? And I basically went through every scenario that could happen in that race that would, I'd say for any runner, would be discouraging, would slow a runner down, would be disappointing, something that we don't want, a negative. And I began to craft all of my reactions. And what I always came back to is I can get through that thing because I want to win this race. The goal is to win the race. And if all these things happen to me, I have an answer or a piece of gear or something in the first aid kit, or I have all these things that I can use to help. But the goal is to be the best all the way to the finish line. The goal was the focus. And I'll tell you what, I got to the start line in 2021. And I did have flashes of 2018, remembering that by mile 30-ish, I started to experience those horrific cramps that stayed with me for the whole race. And I told myself, we train different, we're ready. Nutrition, hydration was absolutely dialed in. I mean, everything that I could think of. And by the time I got to mile 12, I was consistently going diarrhea. And sorry, TMI there. But I had diarrhea for the entire race. And here is the change. Here is the thing that actually happened that helped me get to the finish line in first place. I had an obstacle in 2018. I had an obstacle in 2021. But I changed my perspective in 2021. It was what was going on between my ears that helped me continue to push forward despite all that. See, the thing when you have intestinal problems is you dehydrate yourself. And as soon as nutrition would come in, it would very soon come out. So not only was I dehydrated, low on calories, I was very well aware of how that would compound as the miles would go on. And when I got to mile 13 or 14, I remember going to Eddie and saying to him and the crew, you know what? I have this issue, but I feel amazing. Do you remember what they said?
Yeah.
I feel amazing. Like, lungs are good, legs are strong. Let's keep pushing forward. So the focus was what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to win this race. And you know what, you guys, this just might be a part of the race, but we're going to deal with it. And we dealt with it the best that we could. And it was a lot of hacking because I'd never done this before, but it was like, okay, as soon as I have to stop and go to the bathroom, it was like immediately hydrate, eat. And we just continued to repeat that. I wouldn't say that I had a strong performance. I was, as I climbed up that last climb, I was heartbroken that I was missing my time goal because I knew that what I was capable of doing on that course. And when I was a mile and a half out from the finish line, I remember bending over, placing my hands on my knees, because this is a picture that someone had taken. We can actually put this picture up on the YouTube. But Eddie's like rubbing my back, and I think at this point too, there was something going on with my knee because I remember limping into the finish. And I look up at Eddie and I'm like, man, like I trained so hard for this, and this has been really rough. And I'm heartbroken that I'm not performing to my potential. I'm not hitting that time that I wanted to hit. And Eddie just shakes his head and he's like, you're winning. Like I watched you battle the entire day, and the finish line is right up there, and you're going to achieve what you wanted to do. Yeah, it wasn't in the way that you wanted it to be. It's not in the time that you hoped it would be, but you're achieving what you set out to do. And I think it's so easy that when we are in a rough season in our life, and whether this is in our career or in a relationship or even in the middle of the race, that we get so wrapped up in things not going our way, the things that are in the moment that's not going my way, that we can lose sight of the finish line. We lose sight of the fact that there's something down the road, even if we can't see it, there is something else waiting for us. And maybe what we're working through in that moment is necessary to get us to something greater. Because the truth is that every single setback that I have had in a race, I have been able to use that as confidence, as proof that I can push through discomfort. I can push through pain, that things will get better, that I am stronger. Badwater 135 in 2021 absolutely gave me the confidence to do the Choose Strong project. The Choose Strong project and all the things that happened in those races gave me the confidence to go and do the Grand Slam of 200s. And it just keeps building. And that is what is so exciting about writing our own story. It's okay if you cannot see past the dark cloud today, because there is no way that you can tell or foresee, no human can, what is waiting for you on the other side of that cloud. Or there is no way of telling what you are working through right now, how that will be used for something greater down the road. And the only way that you will know is by going. You have to continue taking one step after the next step and the next step. You have to continue trying. You have to continue to fail. I know so often the word failure or failing, it's such a negative way of looking at a situation. We don't like the feelings that come with that. But failing just means you tried. Failing means that you put yourself out there, you believe that you could achieve it, and even if you didn't, and everyone around you is calling you a failure, or you are telling yourself that, the truth is, the most important thing is that you tried, and you get to do that again. So fail over and over, because you don't know where all of those setbacks, those discomforts, the disappointments, missing the mark, all of those are lessons to get you to something greater. And I think that's a great way to end this podcast today. For those of you that are still running, training, driving, as always, one of my greatest joys is just to encourage you. I hope that the takeaway that you have today is the importance of putting in the good hard work that sometimes feels mundane. The good work that is building you up into all that you were meant to be. It doesn't need to be flashy. It doesn't need to have, an award attached to it. But the thing is that over time, all that work, it compounds and it gets you closer to that goal that you have, or that thing that you don't even know about that's down the road. This question that 26-year-old, what would you say to 26-year-old Sally? I mean, I love thinking about my life. I think it's so important, friends. It's so important that after this podcast, you take a moment, whether you are still running or you're in the car, and you actually think about, what was I doing 5 years ago? What was I doing 10 years ago? When I was 20 years old, or 20 years ago, what did I believe about myself? What did I think that I would be doing? What did I believe that I could achieve? And then look back right now today, what is it that you're doing? What do you believe about yourself? And maybe some things need to be changed. Or maybe you need to have a moment of gratitude and be like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize that I would be there. If someone would have told me that I was doing this today, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed them. And that's really exciting, because the thing is, your best years are not done. The best thing is being able to get to that final finish line at the end of your life. And you have a lot of living to do, and there's a lot more in store for you. So keep going and keep choosing strong in all you do.